Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we're looking at Joshua Zirkzee. It looks like something could be happening on that front. Also, we'll give you an update on the Ligt, plus what is going on with Mason Greenwood. We need to get into all that as well, so let's get into it. Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's pretty sunny, so you won't need your parkers today. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. We want to get to 800,000 subscribers by the start of the season. I think we can get there with your support. We'll get right into it anyway, because loads of stories to crack on with. We'll start with the big one, Joshua Zirkzee. Now, he's been heavily linked with Manchester United, and according to Sky Sports, United have reached a broad agreement with the player. That's a new one for me. United reached broad agreement with the player over terms. We know he's got around a €40 million release clause, around 34 million quid. It looks like United are prepared to pay that. There's a little bit of a twist in the tail with this one, that in the fact that I think Bayern Munich will get 50% of that fee because they've got a deal for his sell-on clause with him, which leaves Bologna sort of a little bit short-changed, but that's the deal, that's the makeup of it, that's what counts. Now also, on the Joshua Zirkzee front, I think Fabrizio Romano tweeted that Erik ten Hag has been heavily involved with this transfer. He's spoken to the player. He's also spoken to Matthijs, Ligt, who we've been linked with as well. I'll get to him in a minute. So it does feel like this one is moving forward. United ready to pull the trigger on the release clause. The player looks like he's happy to come to Manchester United. The manager obviously wants him. He's a player that he's been after. And it is a little bit amusing, isn't it, after all the sort of noise and the talk of Ineos doing things differently, that we end up with a player that basically the manager wants who's come from Holland, which is something we've been doing ever since Erik ten Hag arrived. Now, it's not to say it's a bad idea and we shouldn't be doing that anymore. It's just it doesn't seem to have changed a lot. Certainly not with this transfer anyway. I expect there will be some ahead or further down the line that are a little bit different. But Joshua Zirkzee, decent return. I think it was 11 goals in the Serie A last season for Bologna. Bologna had a very good season, of course, qualifying for the Champions League. That helped get Thiago Motta the move to Juve as the manager. Looks like it's going to help Zirkzee get a move to Old Trafford. Now, I don't expect him to come here and be first-choice striker for Manchester United. I think he's probably going to be a backup to Rasmus Højlund. I think he probably knows that. And if you look at the fees involved, you look at the amount of goals he's scored, you look at his age as well. He's a little bit older than Højlund. He's still a young player. I think he's around 23 years old. You look at the facts as well. I know it's not the be-all and end-all, but he doesn't get in the Dutch squad. He doesn't get in the Dutch team, I should say, sorry. He doesn't even get off the bench. I think Wout Weghorst is the go-to substitute for them. So I wouldn't say he's a player that you go, he's the guy that's going to lead the line for Manchester United. He is someone, however, who could be a backup. I don't know a lot about him. I've seen a little bit. I'm excited to see him, though, and I think this makes a lot of sense. United can't go out and spend 80, 90 million quid on a striker because we need to buy at least 3 or 4 players in this window. And if we go and spend 90 million quid on a striker, that's going to leave us short for other positions. So bringing in someone for around €40 million, someone who can be a backup to Rasmus Højlund, who I think will be our main striker next season, and I think has earned the right to do that after a very good first season, I think makes a lot of sense. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Let me know what you think about this deal. Are you excited? Does it make sense to you? Do you want to see someone else coming in instead of Joshua Zirkzee? If so, let me know who. On the Matthijs de Ligt front as well, I think the Express have been running with this story, 1 or 2 other papers as well, basically indicating that this deal feels like it's going to happen any day now. We know that Erik ten Hag obviously wants the player. We know that the player is happy to move from Bayern Munich to Manchester United, and more importantly, Bayern Munich are happy to sell him. Now, some people have sort of raised an eyebrow in a Carlo Ancelotti fashion, going, "What? De Ligt? Why are Bayern Munich wanting to sell him? Injury issues? Is that the reason that they're willing to let him go?" We spoke about this a lot on the channel, and with all due respect, it's a bit of a weird situation at Bayern Munich. They have this sort of abundance of centre-backs. There's a little bit political as well, where some centre-backs or some players tend to get picked over others for a multitude of reasons. They also need to get certain players off the books because of wages, where they can bring in other players for a little bit less. They're also targeting other defenders as well. There's been linked quite heavily, I think, with Jonathan Tah from Bayer Leverkusen. That would be a sort of double whammy for them, weakening one of their rivals, the team that have just won the Bundesliga, and bringing in a very good centre-back to their club as well. So there's something in that. They've also got Dayot Upamecano. They've also got Kim Min-jae. They have got a decent amount of centre-backs, and it's not a given that De Ligt, he usually does start when he's fit, but it's not always a given as well. So they might look and go, look, we can get someone who's on massive money off our wage bill. We've got other players coming in. We've got other players that can play at centre-back. We're happy to let De Ligt move on. So it could make sense, this deal. I know a few people are looking at it going, oh, Bayern Munich, they don't really let good players go. Well, sometimes they do, and this could be the case. It could be a transfer that makes sense all round. We'll have to keep an eye on it, though. At the minute, nothing has happened, but it is happening, and I expect it to happen in the next few days. So, as always, we will keep you posted. And as always, I want you guys to get involved in the chat and the comments. Let me know what you think about this one. It does seem to make a lot of sense. Obviously, Erik ten Hag knows a player, worked with him at Ajax, was a big part of Erik ten Hag's success there. Ligt was probably that one player from the Ajax team, maybe him or De Jong, who was sort of looked at as the superstar. I know he's a defender, but he was looked at the one that everyone wanted. Had a move to Juve, won a Serie A there, had a move to Bayern Munich, won a Bundesliga there. Coming to Manchester United, going to win the title here. It is obvious 21 is coming. Anyway, we'll move on. I want to talk a little bit about Mason Greenwood. There's a story here in the Mail, and I think it's come via the Mirror. Mason Greenwood wants his future sorting, and he wants it sorting this week. He wants to know what is happening. He's been linked with a few clubs. He's been linked, I think, with Marseille. He was linked with Atletico Madrid. That one seems to have got a little bit cool. I think he was linked with Lazio as well, sorry. So, we don't really know if any of these clubs are going to come back in and are going to be a concrete offer. It's all sort of up in the air. But United need to make a decision. And I've said this a few times, and I'll say it again. I think the way this has been handled has been an absolute shambles by Manchester United. The statements that the club put out when they said, basically, he's not done anything wrong, but we're not going to bring him back to the club. It's better if his future lies elsewhere. Were terrible. You had a statement from Mason Greenwood that wasn't even accurate, I think, if you look at it from a sort of legal point of view. You had a statement from Richard Arnold, and you had a statement from the club. It was leaked, obviously. It was reported in the press that he was going to be brought back into the club. A lot of people weren't happy about that for reasons that you're obviously aware of. Then he gets this move to Getafe on loan, which just felt like it was kicking the can further down the street, not really dealing with the issue. Now he's left in limbo. Whether you think Mason Greenwood should come back to Manchester United or not is not the issue here. The issue is the club haven't handled this. They haven't dealt with it. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. The club needs to make a decision. They either say, Mason Greenwood's done nothing wrong and we're bringing him back, which obviously they're not saying that because they haven't done it. And they say, Mason Greenwood has done something wrong. We don't want him back at this club. And if you can't get a fee for him, let him go, release him. Now, you might say, well, you can't release a player that could bring you in 30, 40 million quid. Well, if you're not bringing him back into the club because you think he's not allowed to play for Manchester United, then let him go then. Or if you don't think he's done anything wrong, then bring him back if you can't get a buyer for him. Because at the minute, this is just a complete mess. And I don't think anything has been resolved. You've got a player there who is still a Manchester United player. He needs to know what's happening with his future. Manchester United needs to deal with it, and they haven't dealt with it for, nearly 2 years now. It's just not good enough. And I think that Mason Greenwood and Manchester United just need to resolve this issue. And if that means just letting him go, then let him go then. If you're not going to bring him back into the team, because you're just hankering around trying to get 30, 40 million quid for him. It ain't happening, and you need to move on. That's my opinion on it. You may differ. By all means, get involved in the chat and the comments. Try and keep it respectful, though, if you know what I mean. I'm going to wrap it up there. We've got a few more stories and sort of topics to talk about later on the Paddock podcast. It's going to be myself, going to be Joe Smith, going to be Adam McCullough joining us for this one, and Ronaldo Brown as well. So we'll get into all that. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, go and check out the interview I did with Henry Winter. Henry Winter is over in Germany. He was speaking about Kobbie Mainoo, my favourite topic in the world. He was getting into all that. He was speaking about Kobbie Mainoo and Luke Shaw as well, who obviously has been brought back into Manchester United, back into Gareth Southgate's team. So go and check out that interview. I've been Jay Motty. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.